Yo, what's good, YouTube, man? It's Gary with John Fan TV. Back at you with a video. Like the content of this video, go smash that like button at the content of this channel. Go and subscribe, man. Look, so the Ravens had their end of the season press conference today. John Harbaugh, Eric DeCosta talked about the season and whatnot. What I want to kind of do is just give my kind of thoughts on the season, right? So, couple good things, couple bad things, and what's next for the Ravens. What are some key areas that I feel like they can improve on next season to, maybe help them get over the hump, right? All right. So we'll start with the good, go to the bad, and go to the future. All right. So, all right, for the good part, right? I think it's very obvious, right? The Ravens passing offense took a massive step this year, right? Last year it was good. This year it was borderline great, right? Lamar Jackson is probably going to win a second consecutive MVP, third MVP overall. But it's not really just about that, right? Zay Flowers emerged really continued and really upgraded his level from his previous season, right? Had a good rookie year, had an even better second year, right? Then you go on to Rashad Bateman. Right? Rashad Bateman had a multitude of injuries the last couple of seasons. Last year he was healthy. This year he was healthy and produced, right? So you get both ends of that from Rashad Bateman, right? You know what I mean? When Zay Flowers goes down in the playoff game versus the Steelers, made a couple of big catches, right? Versus the Buffalo Bills, he was really good, right? So progression, right? And I don't want to get off of Lamar Jackson too quickly in terms of talking about him, right? This is a guy we're gonna have to go over all the narratives and things like that, but we know what was said about Lamar just to come into the NFL. And now with this season completed, year 7, I believe, right? He's thrown for 4,000 yards for the first time in his career. He's thrown for 40 touchdown passes for the first time in his career, all while only throwing 4 interceptions, with most of them not being his fault, or really any of them not being his fault, right? So really an amazing season for a player to be able to push the ball down the field, but also take care of the ball as well, right? Lamar Jackson, in terms of decision making, processing, all the kind of things, got astronomically better in the second year time monkey system, right? These are all skills that Lamar Jackson always had, and things that he could always do, right? But he wasn't in offenses that could showcase that, right? Last year with Tom Monken, that was the beginning of it. Now he's in the groove again with Tom Monken, right? I don't think Monken is going to get a head coaching job. Like, I don't think he's going to get the Jags job, which probably was going to be the main job that he was up for. I don't think he's going to get that one. So I would imagine that Tom Monken is going to be back next year for year 3. And I only expect Lamar Jackson maybe not to have, this great of a season, right? But to have a season right in line with it, right? Another 4,000 yards pass, another 30 plus touchdowns. We'll see if the interceptions stay low. I believe they will. He's been a pretty good quarterback throughout his career of not throwing picks, honestly. So passing offense took a major step this year. That's a major plus, right? In the NFL, you need to be able to throw the football, and the Ravens can do that with the best of them, right? If you watch the second half versus the Buffalo Bills, the game still a sore spot. Lamar Jackson and his Ravens offense walked up and down the field on the Bills. Really, they did the entire game, honestly. Outside of a couple of bad plays, But when you're in the playoffs, a couple of bad plays can end your season. So that's how it goes for the Ravens, right? So second thing that's good on the offense is Derrick Henry, right? Derrick Henry still has time left, right? I can put my hands up and say, like, I was a little bit of a detractor of signing Derrick Henry. Right? I feel like the Ravens need a different kind of running back. But what he provided this year can't be understated. It really can't be, right? He was excellent in what the Ravens asked him to do. When the Ravens put some more on his plate in terms of pass blocking and catching the ball at the backfield, he did those things well when needed. He ran for 2,000 yards. If you include the playoffs, ran for 2,000 yards this season. Like, you can't have expectations like that. From what I had to what he did, he surpassed them, right? Completely. Okay. And so to me, the good part is that I think he still has time left, right? There was no part of the season where it looked like Derrick Henry was slowing down. He looked like Derrick Henry the entirety of the season, right? So the way he trains, way he treats his body, there is still a couple of more elite years left for Derrick Henry. And I think next year he'll be elite again. Honestly, I mean, the running back cliff can come very quickly, but I don't think that's going to happen to Derrick Henry, right? I think he's going to remain that elite kind of running back. I honestly do, right? So that's a really, really good thing, right? So the Ravens have, an elite quarterback. They got an elite running back. They got 2 very, very good wide receivers. And the tight end position were likely, and we'll see what happens with Andrews, but they got pieces on offense that we know of, right? Then can't forget about Justice Hill as well, right? All right. The last good thing, we're gonna go to the defense side of the ball. The defense figuring it out throughout the course of the year, right? Um, do they get credit for being bad the first, 9, 10 weeks and then figuring it out? Not really, right? We'll talk about that, right? So, but the important fact is that guys like our Darius Washington Stepped, who's been on this team for years. I mean, I made videos about our Darius Washington during training camp, maybe last year, saying that he was going to be the Ravens' primary nickel guy, because he's always seemed to be like when our Darius Washington played in the game, he was all around the field, flying around, making plays. Right, that always seems to be a Darius Washington motive. Right, if he's out there, he's making plays. Okay, um, and that didn't change, right? So it's good to see him out there. Kyle Hamilton, one of the better safeties in the league. He's in line to get paid this offseason. DeCosta talked about that. Him and Tyler Linderbaum, they're in line to get paid this offseason, right? So kudos to the Ravens defense for, okay, this is not working, figuring it out, and putting a product on the field that is passable, right? We'll say that, right? Now, quick transition. We're gonna go into the bad from the Ravens season, right? And the bad is where I just started at. That the first 10 weeks of the season, the Ravens defense was god awful, right? Um, it was really unacceptable at times how bad they were on defense. Okay, Eric DeCosta talked a little bit about in the presser that he kind of swung and missed on Eddie Jackson. Eddie Jackson didn't want to accept his role this year as a backup safety, special teamer. He thought he was going to be a little bit more than that. I don't know why when Marcus Williams and Kyle Hamilton was here as starters. I don't know why he thought he was going to be more than that, but he did, and that he didn't accept his role. He didn't accept his place on the team well, and that ended badly for the team, right? So that kind of is what it is, right? Zach Orr had a lot of growing pains, and they got it right. But for this team to be what they want to be, that can't happen, right? You can't spend more than half the year trying to figure out how to get it right on one side of the ball, and then all of a sudden you do get it right, and that's just gonna make up for the whole season. No, it's not, right? The Ravens lost games and potentially seeding in the playoffs, where this Bills game could have been a home game instead of going to Buffalo. Now I thought the Ravens played just fine in Buffalo. I don't think the cold affected them or anything like that, but you do want to have as many home playoff games as you can have, right? I mean, that's just obvious. It's an obvious statement. So, you lose games to the Browns, you lose games to the Raiders. These are games that you can't drop. Honestly, you can't drop those kind of games. So, we'll see what happens with the defense next year, but it's kind of unacceptable to be that bad for that long in the year. Okay. Next thing that's a bad thing, right? The Ravens have to improve on the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. Okay. The Ravens offensive line play, particularly at the guard spots for a large part of this year, once again, was unacceptable, right? Falele seemed like he kind of got better as the season went along, which I guess is to be expected, right? But McCurry kind of shows that he's a backup swing guy. He should never been thrust into the role of a main starter. So the Ravens, to me, have to do some shopping at guard, whether that's free agency, whether that's the draft. You have to kind of revamp that position and get it right. All right, because what they have right now to me isn't acceptable. All right, so um, that's how I feel about that. All right, and then when I say on the other side of the ball too, with the defense, the Ravens have a good pass rush. They put up the sack numbers and things like that. But I still feel a level of inconsistency from the pass rush, right? It's games where they're all there, right? It's games where it's like, the quarterback has no time. But it's also games where what are the Ravens going to do, right? Why does the quarterback feel like he has so much time in the pocket? Why can't the Ravens get home when they only send four, right? If you're going to be a great defense, take that next step. You have to be able to get home when it's just four people rushing. Everything can't be an exotic, simulated, schemed up blitz that gets somebody free. That's not always going to work, and obviously that leaves holes in your defense, especially if the offense is expecting you to do that, right? So that can't always be the way. They need more guys that just flat out win one on one. I like what Kyle Van Noy did this year, but Kyle Van Noy is an older player, right? Odafe Owe reached 10 sacks. Odafe Owe is right now, it's a little bit too hot and cold, right? He'll go on a hot streak, he'll cool off, he'll go on a hot streak again. Okay, Matabike, I think Matabike had a better year than people think. I really do, honestly. But you need some more from him. You paid him, you need some more from him. Okay, and Ojabo, it hasn't shown up as a pick yet. right? And the Ravens need him to show up as a pick, right? They put a second round pick on this guy, and they haven't really got anything out of him just yet. All right, they need more from that. All right, so to me, that's kind of the bad, right? We could talk about Brandon Stevens, but Brandon Stevens is not going to be here next year. Um, you know, but obviously that was part of the bad play in the secondary. Was a large part of Brandon Stevens' struggles this season, right? But he's not going to be here next year. Okay. Um, Now for the future, right? So to me, I got two things here. Is obviously a bunch of things the Ravens could do about the future, right? But I'm just gonna talk about two things. The Ravens need to find a game changer on the edge, right? Listen, pass rush by committee is just not the way to do it. All right. You have to have a guy that teams game plan for. You have to have that kind of guy, right? A guy who can wreck a game, right? Matabike was on his way to doing that last year, didn't have that kind of success this season. I think I need somebody on the edge that's a true game wrecker, right? Now, whether you can find somebody in the draft, spend the first round pick on a highly touted guy, we'll see, right? The Ravens are picking, I think, 27, 28, something like that. Or free agency, right? And if you're willing to pay a pass rusher to come in here, right? But the Ravens have to do something on the edge. They have to get a guy who's a game changer. Somebody where the other team is saying we have to double team him, right? That's going to get other guys free and let them work, right? The Ravens really haven't had those kind of dominant guys you have to account for since a guy like Terrell Suggs left, right? I mean, you got to remember this is the first time the Ravens have had two edge players, get double digit sacks in the same year since Suggs and Elvis Dumervil did it, right? That was like when I was in high school, all right? It's a long time ago, all right? So the Ravens have to get better on the edge. They have to have true game changers on the edge, right? That's what I believe, all right? And then finally the last thing, right? Then we'll get out of here, right? The Ravens have to evaluate the tight end position. Okay. Mainly Mark Andrews, right? And this isn't all about the fact that Mark Andrews did what he did in the playoff game, dropped the pass, whatever, right? It's unfortunate, but it is a fact that he did that. Okay. It is a fact that he has a history of having some of his worst moments happen in the playoffs, right? Lamar Jackson has had that history as well, but during these last couple years, especially with Ty Monkey, we've seen Lamar Jackson play really exceptionally well in the playoffs. We've seen it. It's growing. It's growing. Mike Andrews is still kind of stagnant in the playoffs, right? And then on top of that, Isaiah Likely has kind of taken a leap, right? When Charlie Kohler has been in the game to block one or even catch passes, I mean, you think about the catch he had versus the Browns running that seam route, all right, catching it in stride. He looked good moving out there, right? It kind of makes Mark Andrews replaceable. All right. The Ravens can save, I think it's about $11-12 million with a cut or a trade of Mark Andrews, and they have to evaluate that option, right? You have to evaluate whether or not that's worth doing. All right. I'm not at this point. I'm not sure, but I am kind of leaning towards letting Isaiah Likely take over, letting Charlie Kolar be number two, and maybe you draft another third guy in the draft, right? There's a lot of tight ends in this draft. You don't have to go high, but third, fourth round pick on a tight end, you could do that. That's where they got Isaiah Likely and Kohler at anyway. Okay, so you could do that again. All right. But that's kind of how I feel about this season, right? Just kind of my overall thoughts, good, bad, in the future. Give me your thoughts about the season. Same thing, same format, right? Good, bad, the future. I reply to all comments, man. But it's Gary with Fan TV. I'm out.